We're in my kitchen today, and I wanted to continue the series that we have going where we're testing out different brewing methods, kind of showing you how we approach different kinds of coffees and how we brew them depending on the variety that they are, where they're grown, the country that they're from. So today we're going to focus on, I would say, more of the premium or ultra premium kind of coffees. We're strictly focusing on Panama geishas here. So we have Panama, Los Pozos. This is from Flying Pumas. They were part of the Panama auction this year. I think they were 15th place or something like that. For their washed geisha. We also have their natural geisha. And we're actually not going to brew up the washed geisha, I don't think, but we're going to do the natural that I have. And I'm going to kind of show you the method for these coffees and I would say my favorite brewing method and how I approach this one, how it's a little bit different, how the grind size affects the taste and how quickly it brews through the brewer. We also have something from Adara. It's a honey geisha fermented. This is actually a test case. I'm supposed to provide him some feedback on it. He's never done honey process before, so we'll see how that goes. I actually, I was looking at it. It's roasted on the 12th. It's a little too early. We're gonna let it sit for another week before we get into it, especially for these lightly roasted geishas here. But the last one that we are actually gonna brew up is this Katoa Las Brujas natural geisha. I'll provide you with a little bit of a secret that we have. We are bringing on a couple of coffees from Katoa very soon. They're actually in transit now. One of them is a geisha. It's not from Las Brujas. It's from Silvia Marina, but really, really great geisha. I'm not going to talk much about it because I'll announce it soon once I get it in, once I dial in the profile and whatnot. And we also have some other coffees that we're going to be releasing before that one. So, but we do have this natural geisha. It was really tough to choose between that one and this one, which one I wanted to bring on. I wish I could bring on every coffee, but just can't. So we're going to brew these ones up. I'll take you behind the scenes, show you my brewing method and how it's different than from the other methods that we have. So let's brew some coffee. So this brew method is a bit different because we're not going to brew as much. We're only going to brew 200 mils of water, or pour in 200 mils of water and extract a little bit finer coffee from it. So I think we'll start off with our Pumas geisha natural and then our natural geisha from Katoa, from Las Brujas. Also, Katoa was in the Best of Panama competition as well. I don't remember how they placed, but pretty much everyone that I have here placed within the top 20. So these are some great coffees here. Not the exact lots, but these are some of the best producers in the world. Panama geisha in general. If you can get your hands on some Panama geisha, you're golden. All right, so what we're really gonna do here is get 12 grams of coffee. Okay, so let's start with the Pumas here. We want to get 12 grams, and really what we're looking for with this amount of coffee is higher extraction. So it's still going to sit inside of the water for a good period of time. And actually what I'm doing here is the reason why I don't know exactly how long it's going to sit in there is I haven't actually tested these coffees with this brew method yet. So that's kind of what we've been doing this last week is kind of more of a QC. So this is our QC series where we're testing out different brew methods, telling you about the ones that I enjoy the most. So I'm gonna get 12 grams going, and you can already tell, oh man, this is such a sweet coffee. If I remember correctly, there's lots of cherry notes in this natural geisha here from Flying Pumas. Los Pozos is actually the name of the farm and the area where it's grown in. So that's what we want, 12.1. And then, man, it's so sweet. It's not heavily fermented smell. Sometimes the naturals can be a little bit too fermented, but it's not heavily fermented. It's, I would say, just sweet, kind of like a sweet candy. But sometimes that can be overpowering. It can smell very fermented. That's definitely not the case here. So what we're going to try on most of the Flying Pumas, they do take a little bit longer to brew. So we're not going to go down to our lowest number that we typically would, which would be around a 12 or 13. I think what we're going to do is keep this on a 14. We do want to go a tiny bit finer than usual because that's what's going to ensure that this brews for a longer period of time for higher extraction. So this is what the beans look like. Super, super light, very uniform. I really enjoyed this roast a lot. I'm hoping I can get a video out soon about how I approach this roast, but really uniform, very nice color. I would say on the easier side of the geishas to roast, so really liking it. So we are gonna go to 14 on our Time War 078S. Let's get it in. Yeah, so immediately very sweet, lots of cherry notes, kind of a little bit of plum too. Almost a honey sweetness actually. More honey than a raw sugar. So let's, and we're just doing a very simple V60 brew here. Nothing extravagant. The only thing is the carafe on this right one here, which we'll brew on soon, is the Costa Brewhouse Cyclone. I like it a lot actually. The aromas that get extracted as you're kind of swirling around are really nice. But very standard Hario carafe is perfectly fine if you're looking to mimic this brew recipe. So let's get our Café filter. We have our water. This is the water that we make, distilled water with 3 minerals in it: magnesium, calcium, and potassium. And it's perfect. It's a water that's designed for more fruit-forward coffees. It's lots of magnesium. So definitely want to use good water when you're making these coffees. If you don't have access to make your own coffee and you can't use something like Third Wave or whatnot, then just get a nice spring water, and that should suffice. So we want lots of water in there. We want to heat up our brewer. All right, so this is what the grounds look like. Pretty light in color, pretty uniform. Since they're naturals, you don't see much chaff around them. Looks pretty nice. But a very light roast here. Okay, and our second one we are brewing up is the Panama Katoa Las Brujas Natural Geisha. Also doing 12 grams. You know, I only got exposed to Katoa this year as I was at the expo in Houston. I've had their coffees before, but never really had a relationship with them, never reached out to them before. And I've always thought they were really good. I mean, to be honest, anyone that's serving Panama Geisha is probably a pretty good producer. Once again, a light roast. This was from our sample roaster, so it's not our best roast out there, but you can see the color and the size of the beans, and they look pretty uniform. I know that this one, I actually marked down the grind size that I like to use on a V60, on a Hario filter, and the Café is usually about 1 to 2 grind sizes smaller. So I'm actually gonna go down to 13, and on top of that, this brew method, we wanna brew a little bit finer, so I'm gonna go down to 13 on this. I didn't show it, but I did actually saturate the filter a little bit more because this is a ceramic brewer, and it takes a little bit more heat to get up to that temperature that we're looking for. So with this one especially, you do want to have the environment very similar. So we both want the carafes to be warm and the brewers to be very warm. So this one is a bit warmer. And this one just, since it's plastic, it immediately adjusts to the right temperature. So immediately more citrus. I'd say like orange zest citrus. Sweet, but not super sweet, a little bit floral. A little more floral than the natural Flying Puma's geisha. Definitely not as fermented. So I'm guessing it was in a fermentation period for a shorter period of time, or either the drying process was shorter. I think this is very much more terroir driven versus there's a little bit more of a fermentation forward process here happening. So they focus a little bit more on how it's fermented, how it's processed afterward, versus this, it's just very much how it was grown, where it was grown. But let's show you these grind size. Once again, should be super uniform, and they are. Color is still very light, but just not as light as the natural geisha from Flying Pumas. Okay, so brew method. 198 degrees Fahrenheit, 92 degrees Celsius is what we want to brew at. With these very delicate geisha coffees, you do want to use a little bit more delicate water. So 198 is what I feel is the best. If we had something that was kind of a washed Kenyan or something that was very light, we might want to go a little bit hotter. But for these very delicate geishas, we want to go a little bit cooler. And I would even say if you went to 196, 195, maybe even 91, 92 Celsius, that you could even push that a little bit more and maybe pull out a tiny bit more of the florals that are in these coffees. So don't be afraid to kind of mess around with it a little bit. But with this coffee, you're not brewing up much. It's my favorite brewing method overall because the extraction is higher. So we do 12 grams of coffee, 200 mils of water, and we want it to brew close to 3 minutes, as close to 3 minutes as possible. So we're gonna try and get that out of both of these. And we're not gonna set the kettle back on the heater. We're gonna leave it off the whole time. So we'll begin. First pour, we're going to 30 grams. And we're gonna do lots of agitation all throughout this brew. This is high agitation brew. And we're doing high agitation because we are pouring so little bit of water in here. And there's just a little bit of coffee in it as well. We do wanna move everything around quite frequently. So we're gonna wait until 40 seconds. Once we hit 40 seconds, we're gonna do another pour and we're gonna go up to 60 grams, okay? 60 to 70 grams. So we do 30, 60, 120, and then all the way up to 200. So high agitation again. And for this one, we do want the water to flow through. As you can see, the water is flowing through all the way. We do want it to flow through. It should be about 110 when it finishes, and that's looking like what it is. So now high agitation again to 120. So I can already get sweeter smell from this one. This one is brewing a little bit quicker. That's fine. We're gonna go to about roughly 145 or so here. Once we hit 145, that's when we're gonna do our final pour. And high agitation, final pour, all the way up to 200. So we went to 240. And our second one is gonna go to about 310 or so. So it's running a little bit longer. I would say on the next grind, we would just go up to about a 13 and a half versus 13. But that one was good so far. And we do want these to brew for a little bit longer in general because these are higher extraction coffees. So if it's sitting in the grounds for, you know, to 315, 320 or so, that's perfectly fine because higher extraction is what makes these coffees immaculate. Okay, so you can see with this color of the coffee, it's a little bit more kind of a ruby colored, and that's perfect. Wow, this coffee is just amazing. The smell, oh my God, it's so much cherry. It's a little bit more of like a rainier cherry, but wow, it's so sweet. And then this one, it's a lot more floral. You know, the floralness it's there. I don't know if it's a jasmine floral, a little bit more of a rose floral. I would say on the nose, I would expect a little bit more of a kind of a tangerine or mandarin or some type of orange zest smell to it. Just getting a little bit of that. I think that's because it ran for a little bit long, so maybe we would cut back a little bit more if we went to 13 and a half on the grind size. My favorite brewing method overall because we are getting a higher extraction, but it's still very clean. So what's important here is the filters that we have brew quickly, but we're grinding more fine. And that's gonna give us that longer extraction or longer brew time, which then leads to a better extraction. And I think this coffee is going to be a fantastic Panama Geisha. Oh my gosh, yeah. that floralness, that sweetness, it's all there. You know, even a bit of a plum is coming through as well. Yeah, lots of that plum is there. Yeah, that cherry, those cherry notes, they sit with you. And it's gonna get even better as it cools down. So let's try this one. Yeah, on the cup, heavy citrus, very heavy citrus. I would say, you know, it's mild. It kind of changed a little bit. There's a little bit more of a raw sugar sweetness versus, I think I had mentioned it was a honey sweetness earlier. Definitely on the cup that has changed. So the aromas from the dry grounds to wet grounds even into the cup, it changed to a little bit more of a honey sweetness. Still very nice though, yeah. But I think the one that's really standing out is this natural geisha from Flying Pumas and Los Pozos. It is just so sweet. Every coffee is fermented. That's what leads to the coffee being depulped. That's what leads to the next set of the processing method, whether it's washed or natural or whatnot. So every coffee is fermented, okay? Some producers, not wrong or not right, like to ferment for extended period of time. So what they'll potentially do is, depending on the environment that they're in, maybe it's hotter, okay? And the coffee will ferment quicker, right? Maybe it's cooler, so it'll ferment slower. Some producers are even looking for a slower fermentation process so that it can soak up a little bit more of that sweetness. So they may throw it into a dry room, a very dark room, very colder room, so that it can ferment for a little bit longer. This coffee seems like it was one of those methods that was used. I know it was an anaerobic natural, so there was a period of time where they threw it inside of a tank and closed off that tank. Whether they extracted all of the oxygen or not doesn't really matter. It just means it isn't exposed to oxygen during that period of time. So the anaerobic is really coming through, and that could lead to more of a fermented note. Fermented can kind of mean a few things, whether it's an alcoholic note, or it could just, some people can interpret it as a fruit-forward coffee or sweeter coffee. And I think in this case, not much of an alcoholic note. I would say it's more of a sweet kind of fruit note. I would say it's more of a sweet fruit note. And it's a really nice coffee. And it's great to have a reminder as of, as of why I chose this coffee initially. And I actually chose 2 coffees from them, a washed and a natural. What I'm also doing here during our QC process is seeing how the coffee changes as it cools. So these are some really delicate coffees. And what makes them delicate is how they extract, how they are extracted during the brewing process, but also how they're changing. And they're changing in this really cool way where you may unlock completely new notes in it as it cools down. So if you've never kind of experienced premium coffees from hot to cool, not cold, but from hot to cool, it's really something I hope you can experience, because even this coffee now, I think it has changed maybe 10, 15 degrees from when it was brewed. And I'm already getting a more predominant cherry note in it. It's definitely a Rainier cherry, very distinct, but still very nice. Those are my favorite cherries. So, and the tangerine, the tangerine notes, because it is very distinct that this is a tangerine note in this Katoa. It's a really great coffee too. I was a little bit worried bringing this one out because I was thinking I might look back on my purchase and think I purchased the wrong one, you know. You know, as this has cooled down, I think the sweetness has gone a little bit more mild. It's definitely not as sweet as on the dry grounds. Some of that can be because of extraction, brewing method or whatnot. This one, I'm really looking, as I've said it many times here, I'm looking for a higher extraction yield. So those sugar sweetness should be coming through a bit more, and it's just not. That might have been why I decided against this one. And by the way, this is a great coffee. I am in no way saying that this is a bad coffee. This is a great coffee. And with this coffee, it's so terroir driven with a little bit of that anaerobic kind of fermented note to it that will pique the interest of so many people. So that's why I chose this Los Pozos, and that's why I did not choose this Katoa Las Brujas Geisha, although I do have a Katoa coming in soon. Yeah, so this is my favorite brewing method. It's a brewing method that hits a couple of points here that I'm going for. High extraction, not as much coffee. The reason why I don't use this brewing method at the market when I'm brewing coffee for customers is because it doesn't brew a lot of coffee. So let's say you just want to appreciate the coffee and not necessarily look at the caffeine content, or you don't necessarily need coffee to wake you up. This brew method is perfect for that. So 12 grams of coffee, 200 mils of water, 198 degrees Fahrenheit water, or 92 degrees Celsius. It was a 4-pour method, 30, 60, 120, and 200. And we want it to end around 2:45 to 3 minutes. And that's generally what we're looking for. If you enjoy this video and you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing if you're not already. Give it a like too. That just helps grow the channel, helps with the business. I love doing content like this. So if you enjoyed it, do all that. I'll see you in the next one. I'm gonna enjoy this natural geisha from Los Pozos. Such a great coffee. Oh my God.